the Moneyweb Crypto Podcast, where we discuss all things crypto related. Your host, Kieran Ryan.
South African law enforcement and regulators are getting a helping hand from abroad. It's become clear in recent years that crypto is one of the preferred methods for criminals and those financing terrorist activities to disguise what they're doing. And this certainly played a part in South Africa's grey listing by the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF. Blockchain technology was developed as an immutable record of all transactions going back to the very start. So it is, in theory, easy to track all transactions. The problem comes in attaching an identity to those transactions. Many of the most famous hacks in recent years were made possible by weak digital security, usually at the crypto exchange level. But the blockchain doesn't lie. You can steal from an exchange, but as soon as you try to spend that crypto, you could be traced. Crypto company Binance recently sent out a team to assist local law enforcement and regulators in the science of investigating and track down crypto crime. And we're joined now by Niels Andersen-Root, Deputy Head of Financial Crime Compliance at Binance, and Jarek Jakubczek, Head of Law Enforcement Training, also at Binance. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kieran.
Niels, tell us, why are you in South Africa?
One of the main reasons for us being here is that we, as Binance, one of the most important things is that users need to be secure. Our users need to be able to trade securely. Users need to be able to use crypto in a secure manner as well. And that's like top priority for the company. That's basically why we are here as well. We need to engage with the people that can investigate crypto crime. As you mentioned, it is being used by criminals, obviously. And that is also why we want to engage with the partners, being law enforcement, being the judiciary, to sort of explain how we try to fight crypto crime internally, but also how we can sort of educate law enforcement and help them fight crimes as well.
Okay, Jarek, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, exactly. And just to follow up on what Niels is saying, at Binance we really put a great emphasis on our close cooperation with law enforcement. We have more than 70 people who are directly engaging with law enforcement authorities around the world. And of these more than 70, about 25 of us have a law enforcement background. So those are people like Niels or I who previously worked as financial investigators, cybercrime investigators, cryptocurrency investigators. So we speak the same language as the law enforcement. We understand what their needs are. And this is something that is really unprecedented in the industry. No other company comes anywhere close to Binance. Even if you put all the other crypto exchanges together, you would not get as many people with law enforcement background working in them. And for us, working with the law enforcement is really about protecting the users. And we are doing it not only through operational cooperation, but also through our proactive activities, such as delivering the training. So this is the reason why we are here in South Africa. We want to make sure the law enforcement knows how to reach out to us. They know what they can expect from us. They know what kind of support we can provide. And really, this is part of the program that we are running all around the world. We have already delivered more than 120 educational sessions around the world this year for law enforcement. And this is the first time we are doing something similar for law enforcement here in South Africa. So this is one very important part of the overall jigsaw puzzle. This is the real reason why we are here in Johannesburg.
All right, so you mentioned that you've got a background in law enforcement. What is your background?
Indeed, I started as a technical guy working for internet service providers, mobile phone companies, but I was always drawn to the law enforcement. Always, it was a dream of mine to solve crimes and investigate. So that dream of mine came to reality in Ireland. Even though, as you can hear, I'm definitely not from there.
No, I didn't think so.
Yeah, indeed. So I spent a brilliant 5 years working for Irish police, but then I wanted to make a progress and then I wanted to spend more time on cybercrime investigations and cryptocurrency investigations in particular. It was obvious that I need to go internationally. And the options were either Interpol or Europol. And Europol was the first one back in 2013 that opened Cybercrime Center for investigators. So that was my logical destination. So I joined the Cybercrime Center, and since 2014 I became the main cryptocurrency contact at Europol, and I started supporting major investigations in Europe and abroad.
And Neil, same question for you. What's your background in crypto?
Well, you can sort of look at Jarek's background as well, because it's quite similar, even though we didn't really know each other. My background is also in the network security industry, and then later I made a switch to law enforcement. So I joined the Dutch National Police, worked on large organized crime cases, traditional crime cases as well. And then later the Dutch police started a specific unit that started to look into dark web crime, with specific focus on dark web markets, so the illicit marketplaces on the sort of the hidden part of the internet. I became a project leader from the dark web team in the Dutch National Police. And one of my first cases was actually a case that was looking into one of the largest darknet markets, was the second biggest darknet markets on the Tor network.
Just explain what the darknet is.
So the darknet is, if you look at the internet, there's like a public part of the internet which you can use. So that's your Google or your general websites as well. And then there's also a part which you can only access if you use specific types of browsers. It's an encrypted part of the internet. If you Google, for example, on a Tor browser, you will see a specific browser which will give you access to that sort of hidden part of the internet. And that's the part of the internet where a lot of illicit activities happen as well. And then you have to think about illicit marketplaces where you can buy drugs or ransomware toolkits or stolen usernames, passwords, credit card details as well, but also some other hideous crimes as well.
You can hire a hitman.
You can even hire a hitman. I wouldn't recommend
the dark
it.
Net, yeah.
Yeah, but indeed. Yeah. But you can hire a hitman. You can sort of pay for it with crypto because that's sort of like the main currency for those kind of crimes as well. So that was my main focus on that particular team. And the largest case was actually identifying where one of the largest markets on the darknet was running, and then also trying to take it over. We actually ran it for a couple of weeks to gather a lot of information and then take it down. After that, I went to Europol, the same place as Jarek was working, and there I became the main specialist from the Europol Darknet team. They created a new team to basically sort of copy the things that we did in the Netherlands as well.
I mean, with the Tor browser, for example, you have layers of anonymity built into it. So you're going through, I guess, what is an extremely complex sort of VPN, virtual private network system. Is it possible to track people?
Well, with criminals, you usually have to look for the point where a criminal makes a mistake, because you can use all kinds of anonymity toolkits, and if you do it perfectly, it will be very hard for law enforcement to catch a criminal. But the fact that we were able to search who was running a marketplace and where the marketplace was running, and eventually even take it over while the criminals didn't notice it, that sort of proves the fact that you can still fight crime on Tor networks. And one of the main uses of the key things to use is, for example, also look at the payments for the transactions for people that actually buy drugs, but also try to locate the infrastructure and then see who's actually paying for a hosting company, who's paying for the server. And usually people use crypto. And then, but you mentioned in your introduction as well, crypto as a public ledger. So as soon as you have one little piece of information, and for example, if it's a cryptocurrency address, you can use that to sort of see where it goes to. And then if it's an exchange, you can approach the exchange, collect some more information, and that might be the name of your suspect, it might be an IP address, it might be some more information as well. And then you can use that piece of the puzzle and link it together with the rest of the information and then try to identify the whole network.
Yeah, just to support what Niels is saying there, indeed, when you take a look at dark web investigations and you look at different success stories, people who were usually detected because of the transparent nature of the blockchain and because of investigators following the money rather than some inherent vulnerabilities in the Tor.
Right. I mean, there's a famous case in Florida where I think it was Bitfinex, when that exchange was hacked and they stole something like a huge amount of money, $500 million or more. And they sat on it for years because they know that on the blockchain, the FBI was watching, and as soon as you move money out of those addresses, they don't know the identity attached to that address, but as soon as you move it, they can track it in real time, which is what they were doing. But how the people got caught was one of the ladies involved. She went to and bought a gift card and paid for it with crypto. And of course, at that point, they could get an identity, an email address, and from that they arrested them.
Exactly, and I was of course following this case quite closely, and I can tell you quite frankly that this case would not be possible to solve through traditional investigation methods. So, following the IP addresses, doing the open source research, communicating with the traditional communications companies. Of course, it was all part of the grand investigation, but the suspect would not be detected if it wasn't for the cryptocurrencies and for following the money. And of course, it would be also very complicated to seize funds, because in many cases, especially linked to traditional finance, the suspects are able to conceal funds, they are able to hide funds in a way that they cannot be recovered. And as you know, in this particular example, practically all the funds that were stolen were recovered later by the law enforcement.
And Mt. Gox would be another case. That was the 2014 hack of Mt. Gox, which at that time I think it accounted for 70-80% of all the crypto transactions in the world. That was hacked. And at the time, it wasn't a huge amount of money, but of course, as Bitcoin appreciated, it ended up being a massive amount of money. Now, most of that was recovered and is being returned as we speak to the owners, right?
And it just shows the resilience of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in that sense as well, because, as you say, Mt. Gox was a huge and dominant player at the time, and all its demise caused was a minor price, was a price decline. And of course, the Bitcoin has recovered, and it has fallen down and recovered many times again. So
I've got to ask you, do you own Bitcoin?
Of course, to be honest, yes, I own Bitcoins. I own Bitcoins since 2013. This was also the reason why I became a cryptocurrency investigator, because back in 2012, 13, 14, the only people who were investigating cryptocurrency crimes were law enforcement people who were cryptocurrency enthusiasts. You had to be both. You had to be an investigator and you had to be a crypto enthusiast, because otherwise the topic would be too abstract for you. So at that point, people like me or Niels, we were playing with the technology as a hobby. We were sending our own transactions. We were checking how these transactions are recorded in the blockchain. We were trying to interpret it, make sense of it. At that point, there were no guides, there were no manuals. So there was a lot of pioneering, trial and error work involved. So indeed, a lot of people who currently work at Binance have been in crypto for many years. And practically all of us started as big fans of the technology. If I did not trust the technology, if I did not believe it's something awesome and revolutionary, I wouldn't become a crypto investigator.
And Niels, same with you. You own crypto, yeah?
Yeah, although not as much as I would have wanted to. I mean, I was working for law enforcement, and then, of course, it's indeed experimenting with the technology. Like Jarek said, the tools weren't out there. So it was basically playing with Excel spreadsheets and doing your own research, basically. Later on, the commercial solutions came out that actually helped investigators a lot more. But indeed, you needed to experiment and see what actually happened in order to investigate this type of crime. And the interesting thing about Bitcoin and crypto is that a lot of the criminals actually thought that it was anonymous. I think at the beginning, everybody thought it was anonymous. It's actually sort of like pseudonymous, which means you have to connect an identity which exists somewhere. You have to connect that to the addresses on the blockchain. And I mean, yeah, in many of my cases, I proved that that's possible. And for Jarek, the same as well. And of course, it's not.
And just to pause you on that one there, because maybe this is information you don't want the criminals to know. But is that something that you keep very close to your chest, or is that something that you're willing to share?
Well, I mean, the techniques are definitely something we're willing to share, obviously with law enforcement. That's also one of the main reasons why we are here, to sort of share our experience. On one hand, share how we as a company, how we are helping law enforcement, how they can reach us, what we can do to assist them in their investigation as well, but also to share some of our own experiences and also on a very basic level, how to explain Bitcoin, how it works, and how you can leverage the information in the blockchain and the knowledge of how a Bitcoin transaction works, how you can leverage that in your investigation. So you can, I mean, it's actually a lot more information than you have in traditional crime. I mean, I also used to work traditional cases, and then you would have your wiretaps. And maybe you would hear something about one person that was bringing one bag of cash to another person. Then you had your observations teams, and you have to monitor that and catch the criminals. Maybe you see a bank account somewhere. You had to send a subpoena to the bank. You have to wait. You had to get your details back. Then you would have to analyze those records. And then maybe a transaction to another bank. And you had to repeat the process. Again, a subpoena. Then wait for the results from the bank. What you can do right now with the blockchain is that I see a transaction to another address. I can see on that address what's actually happening. If it receives more money, if it sends all the crypto to another address, or maybe a part of that address, and I can sort of slowly go from there until I had an exchange, and then I have to send the subpoena. But everything between those addresses, so the originating address and the exchange address, is something I can just monitor without the need for additional subpoenas. So in that sense, it's actually a way more efficient way to investigate it. And that's something, I used in my investigations, but it's not just me. Jarek is there as well. We have multiple other investigators that worked many different cases, and it ranges from child sexual abuse platforms to drug trafficking platforms as well, even murder for hire cases like you mentioned earlier as well. So we do have the experience, we know how it works, and now the main point for us is to use that to help law enforcement, but also use the knowledge internally to build our defenses, build the protections to sort of make it more secure for users to trade crypto as well.
By the way, you work for Dutch police.
Yeah.
Are you Dutch?
Yeah, I am Dutch. Yeah.
Okay, with a Swedish name?
A Norwegian name.
Norwegian name, sorry. And you are Czech?
Czech, exactly.
Jarek, you're Czech, yeah?
My name is Czech, but yes, I really like traveling, so Dubai and United Arab Emirates is country number 7 for me.
Oh, wow. Okay, I want you to just explain, you've put in all of these filters and systems at Binance to try and cut down crime. Now, a lot of crypto crime happened in South Africa. You heard about Mirror Trading International, I presume. That originated here in South Africa, and that pulled in something like 29,000, perhaps more, Bitcoin, of which only 1,100 has so far been recovered. Now, a lot of that would have been paid out to, because it was a Ponzi scheme, it was paid out as rewards to the people who got in early. Take us through how you would set up a system to detect, as soon as you can, criminal activity and then prevent it.
Yeah, that would be a topic for a dissertation. But
I'm sure.
In a nutshell, of course, you cannot have proper money laundering, anti-money laundering activities on the exchange without knowing who your customers are. So the cornerstone of everything is identifying the customers, to have proper KYC, know your customer, in place. So this is, of course, something that Binance has in place. Basically every single active user of Binance had to go through a proper KYC procedure where they upload the identity documents, they upload their selfies. Sometimes we have another ways also to identify to verify the identity, and then of course we have many other checks in place. For example, we are focusing on flows of money, where the money is coming from, where the money are going to. And of course, like in the traditional industry, we can do the same thing like the banks can. We can ask people. But in addition, we are taking advantage of this transparent nature of the blockchain. So in addition to asking people where the money is coming from, we are also checking what the clients say corresponds with what we see from the blockchain. So we have a transaction monitoring in place, which means that we are using commercial tracing tool monitor for incoming and outgoing transactions. So we are not dependent on what the clients are telling us. We are also able to do our own checks, and that results in many proactive investigation from our end that we end up referring to the law enforcement.
But at what point would you start getting interested? Because you've got millions of transactions happening every day. At what point do you get interested and suspicious of a transaction?
It depends on the type of crime. We have the transaction monitoring systems, which on the one hand look at the same kind of things that banks are looking at. So we're looking for specific money laundering patterns, which means, for example, layering of transactions. Usually criminals don't send all their money in one particular transaction, but they try to layer it in smaller chunks because they know the systems usually catch, for example, one big transaction for $1 million, but maybe it works if they try to use multiple different transactions from 10K, for example. So those kind of patterns are being detected, but there's a couple of other sort of fiat money laundering patterns that we're monitoring for. If the system generates an alert, that case will automatically go to investigators. So they will look at the user's activity, see if it sort of fits within normal behavior of the user, and if it doesn't, they will escalate it further to a SAR investigations team, which are they basically start a more in-depth investigation, and that will then lead into a SAR filing, which will report it to a local regulator, and then the regulator can look into that and pass it over to law enforcement.
Right, Niels, a question we often get asked by our readers at Moneyweb is whether it's possible to recover stolen crypto. Now, we've spoken about Mt. Gox. A lot of that money is now going back to the people who lost it. And I think Bitfinex, that was another hack there. I think a lot of that money has been recovered. Whether it's been returned or not, I don't know. But can you help answer that question? One of our readers, for example, he wrote to us, and we, with the help of CSR, which is a scientific research body here in South Africa, have developed a monitoring tool for the blockchain. They helped us track down, his money was stolen. And they helped to track down, and some of it ended up at Binance, and we wrote to Binance and asked if they can put a freeze on that and see if we can recover. You probably don't know about that case. It's not a very large one, but we certainly got cooperation from Binance in that investigation, which we did ourselves. So what is the answer to that question? Can people recover stolen crypto?
Yes, they can. And we're actually working on that on a daily basis. Binance has a law enforcement request team which handles law enforcement requests. If your money is stolen, the best advice is basically go to law enforcement, file a complaint, and law enforcement has to investigate that. Law enforcement can reach out to exchanges, they can send subpoenas or seizure orders, and then if the money is still at the exchange, it can be returned to the victims. So that's like the general process, a very fast track. That's the general process. In a more, if you look at it in more detail, our law enforcement request team handles those requests, so they will analyze the request. I think up till now for this year, we have over 50,000 law enforcement requests from agencies from across the world, basically.
50,000?
Yeah, 50,000.
In 1 year? Well, so far this year?
So far this year.
Wow.
We have over 50,000. Last year we also had over 50,000. So there's a large number of law enforcement requests. And usually those requests are either RFIs, requests for information, but it's also freezing and seizure orders. And we comply with those seizure orders as well.
Can you voluntarily do a seizure if there's a suspicion that this might be stolen money?
Well, there's two things. We have to have a legal basis in order to freeze funds or to transfer funds to another account. On the other hand, like Jarek mentions, we also have proactive investigations on our end as well. So the law enforcement track is the official route to get back your money. So again, if you're a victim for a hack, please go to law enforcement. If law enforcement doesn't know how to investigate the crime, then of course that's another issue. But that's also one of the reasons why we're here and why we are basically doing all these workshops in different countries to explain how we work and what you can do with crypto. But the proactive investigations is another thing, because if our investigators in our investigations teams notice certain types of illicit activities, and that can range from large hacks, for example, from DeFi networks or other types of things, and we see money flowing through our exchange, then we do take proactive actions and we do freeze the accounts. And we also proactively reach out to law enforcement to help build the case and also say, like, okay, we did this and this and this. The money ended up in these particular accounts. If you send us a seizure order, then we can transfer the funds back to law enforcement. And again, law enforcement can send the money back to the victims.
Right. I mean, one of the things, the complaints that we've heard in South Africa is the South African police are overstretched. They have too many cases that are unhandled. They're backlogged. And when it comes to cybercrime of this nature, that they just don't have the resources. Yep. So what's your experience? You've been training them this morning. Do they have some?
Well, I mean, that's not just in South Africa. That's basically anywhere. If you ask law enforcement if they have enough resources, then the answer is no. And they also have to prioritize. And that's, of course, always a difficult question. On the one hand, we're trying to address the problem where law enforcement doesn't have the skills or the tools or the know-how how to investigate it. On the other hand, we also spend a lot of time on educating the public. So there's not law enforcement, but it's the general public that's trading crypto. Educate them to make sure they don't fall victim to crime. Right now, we're seeing a lot of activities related to fraud and scams and those kind of things. And the number one priority is to educate users not to fall victim to scams, because then you can prevent crimes from happening, of course. Mm. And that's another very important thing that we're focusing on as well. We have a lot of anti-scam blog posts on our platform. Yeah. We also work together with law enforcement to post specific banners on there as well. And the interesting thing about these events with law enforcement is also that we get some information back about the types of illicit activities that they're seeing, so we can then implement it back into our controls as well. Because we do have controls in place that if there's suspicious activity on a particular account, that the account will, for example, be locked for a specific amount of time, or it will trigger an alert, and then someone will review the account. And we can engage with the user to see if it's normal activity or not, or if they fell victim to scams.
Jarek, maybe just take us through what are some of the trends that you're noticing in terms of crypto crime within the last year or two.
Mm-hmm. No, from what I can tell you, we can definitely see the effect of public at large adopting cryptocurrencies at an increased rate. Because when I started with crypto investigations back in 2013-14, all the crimes were about ransomware and dark web investigations. Whereas nowadays, you can see whereas more and more people are embracing cryptocurrencies, then of course more and more people are also targeted by the scammers who want to capitalize on this increasing adoption of crypto. So for that reason, we are seeing, let's say, decreasing proportions of crimes related to traditional crypto crimes like dark web or ransomware activities. We see a relatively small amount of, let's say, terrorism financing or child abuse, these highly important crimes. And we see huge quantities of different investment-related fraudulent activities, because many people now, they see cryptocurrencies as a way to basically invest their funds. And unfortunately, many people are not investing as much time as they should into education. They are not doing their own research. They are relying on advice of other people. And inevitably, once people depend on advice of other people, they are vulnerable to become victims of scams. So this is unfortunately something that we see. And also, there is a lot of vulnerable individuals out there. There is a lot of people who do not really understand cryptocurrencies, and they are still investing their money, which of course is something that we are actively advising against. So if you, for example, follow our messages and the messages of our CEO, we are strongly pushing this do your own research before committing your money to the crypto.
Right. Did you want to add something to that, Niels?
Yeah, I mean, Binance is by far the largest crypto exchange if you look at the trading volume. And we also see it as a sort of an obligation to crypto space safe as well. That's one of the main motivations for me of joining the company. Also, by the way, when I joined the company, I joined together with several other former law enforcement colleagues as well. A lot of colleagues from IRSCI, which also did a lot of
What is
from the U.S. Internal Revenue Service, and then the criminal investigations part. They also worked on a lot of very large crypto cases, the Silk Road cases, Welcome to Video, and several
Silk
others.
Road being a sort of darknet marketplace.
One of the first darknet marketplaces, indeed, yeah. But we sort of see it as an obligation to make the crypto space safer as well. We encountered Binance in a lot of our investigations because it was the largest exchange, and Binance was always a very compliant exchange as well. They would send us the results very quickly, and that helped us in our cases as well. Now we're on the other side. We have all this information, we have all this data, and we also have the ability to sort of make our exchange safer, but also make it safer for the general public. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here. If I can speak for Jarek, probably also for Jarek, but I know many of the colleagues that we hired because we sort of expanded and the investigations team in Binance as well. All those people have the same mindset and the same drive. And the technology is great. And of course you can use it for illicit purposes. But if you actually look at the volume of that illicit activities compared to all the other transactions on blockchain, that's a very small amount. Chainalysis is one of the cryptocurrency tracing companies, like the main cryptocurrency tracing companies.
It's Chainalysis, yeah?
Yeah, and they estimated the percentage of illicit transactions on the blockchain from last year at 0 to 24%. And if you sort of make the calculation, then you're talking about billions, which is still a large amount of money. But if you look at the amount of, or the estimated amount of illicit activities in the fiat space, in the normal monetary world, then you're talking about trillions. So it's a different factor. But of course, we still want to prevent users to fall victim from scams and make sure that criminals are getting caught. But yeah, that's basically the main reason why we're here.
Final question to you, Jarek. Give us a very quickly a few tips for people who might be interested in buying crypto because they've just heard on Facebook that you can earn 10% a month. Is that true?
Well, if you are approached by someone giving you financial advice out of the blue, consider it to be a scam.
Okay. Definitely. Yeah.
All right, final words, Jarek.
Final words. So yes, like with any other technology, for example, with the internet, we could see that typically the first group of people who embrace it are criminals. If the technology is practical, if it works, criminals are the first one to jump on the bandwagon. And not surprisingly, we saw this with crypto as well. Back in 2011, 12, 13, criminals were one of the first ones who realized how practical cryptocurrency is to send funds around and to store it in a safe way. And we can indeed see this trend where the cryptocurrency abuse, according again Chainalysis, one of the leading tracing companies, decreased from about 20% of total transactions to about 0.24% transaction. So on one hand,
it's a massive endorsement of the policing that is possible with the blockchain technology and with crypto.
Yes,
right, and the fact that people, the exchanges themselves seem to be more alert to this. They're quicker on the ball in detecting these crimes. But I mean that's so this idea that crypto is one of the main sources of criminal activity or the main sources of revenue is no longer true. It's a very tiny percentage of the total financial universe.
Yes. Indeed so. And yes, if you are speaking about, let's say, specific criminals activities, let's say if you are talking into trade on the dark web platforms, then indeed you can mention that crypto is one of the main payment mechanisms. But if you take a look at crime that is happening in the all around you, then of course crypto only plays a very minor role in that one.
Yeah, it's a minor role. Of course, it's still important to take into account that it's there. Criminals use everything that they can use to commit their crimes, and crypto is one part of it as well. But because it's one part of it, it's very likely that criminals also still use fiat money. And that's also why it's important to work together. As a crypto industry, it's important to work together. So we are working together with other exchanges. We're working together with other tracing companies. But we're also working together with banks because those are the other part of the puzzle. Banks, or users with a bank account might send money to us. And then, for example, people buy crypto and then they transact. So we sort of try to engage with the different players in the world to, like I said, to make the crypto space a little bit safer as well. But collaboration is another very important thing as well to add.
Indeed, yes. And as we can see the growing adoption of cryptocurrencies, we can see a lot of huge increase in legitimate use. Of course, increasing number of users means increasing number of targets. So this is exactly why Binance is investing a lot of resources both into crime prevention in our cooperation with law enforcement. And yeah, this is the reason why we are here.
Yeah.
Good. We're going to leave it there. Fascinating discussion. Thanks very much. That was Niels Anderson Rutt, who's Deputy Head of Financial Crime Compliance at Binance, and Jarek Jakubczyk, who is Head of Law Enforcement Training at Binance. Thank you both for coming in.
Thank you, Kieran.
Thanks for listening to the Moneyweb Crypto Podcast, hosted by Kieran Ryan. To listen to our other podcasts, go to moneyweb.co.za or the Moneyweb app and follow Moneyweb News for daily updates.